What are other crucial parameters of the infrastructure you will need to pay attention to?
So, and looking at the package as a whole, you should definitely look at the connectivity, both locally, as I mentioned earlier, but also between the different regions. Because depending on the matchmaking rules and the size of your player pool, it could very well be, especially during the later hours or during the day itself, that players might be playing together from different regions. Of course, during prime time, there should be enough players, but when the play curve is going down or early in the midday when it's still going up, it could very well be that from different regions, players will be playing together. So it's also important how the connectivity is from, for example, Eastern Europe towards Rotterdam. If you look at our data center here, just as important as it is from Germany or France to Rotterdam. So you should also be testing that and looking at that to ensure that your players will have the best experience. The second part is you can have low latency, but you can still have packet loss.
Okay.
So packet loss happens when the line between the data center and the end user's ISP is congested at somewhere along the road. And yes, the distance could still be very small, so the latency would be low, but at certain point of the day, usually the evenings, it could be congested, and then a number of the packets in transit, and the game usually uses UDP, they get lost, they never get recovered, and for a player, it experiences a rubber banding. You think you might kill someone, but then you're not. It's a very frustrating experience, and that's definitely something that you want to take with you in your evaluation and testing of a provider. And then it's the thing, especially in competitive games or when there's a Twitch stream going on of a popular Twitch guy or girl switching to your game with their 100,000 followers. There's a lot of DDos happening in gaming. From either malign script kiddies to the professional extortionists who will do nothing but try to get your whole game offline in a region or maybe even globally. So you should check what kind of tooling your provider has for that. Is it just generic tooling where they do rerouting your game traffic to another scrubbing center, which for the majority of games is very bad, because by then usually the connection is already terminated. Do they have any inline filtering? Do they have anything especially for UDP traffic? Do they have blacklisting, whitelisting systems maybe for your game join ports? Those are all things that you should question and talk about because it's extremely important for your game, because your game's released, everyone is playing it, but this is not in place, and an actor can simply remove a whole region of capacity by attacking it within a few minutes. Then as the player, you might be disconnected and thrown out of the game multiple times in the evening. Well, that might happen one evening, but if it happens a few evenings, that player is never going to touch your game again, and it's a lost opportunity. So it should definitely be something to keep in mind. And then
also because I think the video game world is it's the trade against the most anti-DDoS attacks, right? Because people kind of love targeting players.
There's a lot of emotion going on in the games as well, and especially when you're losing or winning. The boundary to then do the attack, or as I like to call it, there's always people enjoy ruining someone else's sandcastle. This is definitely true in gaming, so we see a lot of it. And then finally, one thing is that there might be a great network, there might be almost no packet loss, but does your hosting provider have actually real relationships with all these important end user ISPs? Do they have someone there that they can talk to if something is wrong? And if they need an escalation or an investigation into why the performance is, for example, not going well. Normally, I would say this in the professional terms, you would say our peering relationships of the provider with the end user ISP. So they have a lot of direct connections to these end user ISPs. Do they have a lot of network engineering in place in the network, in their backbone with the BGP communities, and how they can selectively steer and improve the network if the situation asks for it? Or is the provider which needs to send a ticket to their own network engineering team, and then it takes 3 weeks to take place? These are a little bit harder to test. You need to really think of some specific situations to ask them. But you need to figure out how responsive their backbone team or their network engineering is to any of a real life situation happening. Just look, for example, at the war with Russia and Ukraine. In the beginning, that severely disrupted the internet routing and traffic towards the whole Eastern Europe.
Yep.
And as a hosting provider, you needed to be on the ball with your network to route around it and make sure that it kept working.
Yeah. It sounds like then it's really important to, if you want to provide that kind of service, that you are owning the full stack in a way, right? Because it's not just the service. Now you're telling me about the network and the peering relationships as well.
I totally agree. For in the end, again, player experience is key. And you as the producer want to have an answer as soon as possible what is going on. You want the data, you want the insights, so you can tell the angry horde with pitchforks on Twitter, Reddit, or wherever they are, what's going on, what's happening, and what will be the resolution time, if anything. So from the hosting provider's point of view, you can only do that if you are in control of your complete stack, from the data center towards the whole level on top, to the servers, to the software, to the network, and everything in between, really. So the also for the network, the less parties that are between you and the end user, the easier it is to debug and escalate and find out what the problem is.
Yeah, absolutely.
If also the hardware is under your own control, you can immediately know what's going on, what is wrong. If you have the direct contacts with all of these data centers that you will know what is happening if there's a power outage or a heating problem or anything else going on, because you are the direct contact, the contract person of these entities. So again, if you have control of the complete stack, you have the ability to respond a lot quicker to your customer incidents and to your customers' questions, to give them the feedback that they need to have from their players. In a normal corporate enterprise environment, a turnaround time of 1, 2, or even 3 weeks to a simple question is not that uncommon. In gaming, however, you want that within minutes or less. Ideally, you want it as soon as possible. You want to be able to reach out to your provider on Slack, to someone knowledgeable who can give you insight on what is going on. And I believe that's where we offer a very unique proposition.
Yeah, it's interesting for me as well, because if the hosting doesn't work, like if for some reason my players cannot connect, I already need to take a bit of time to investigate, is it down to a certain platform? Is it my game build?
Is it your own backend or your own services? And usually by the time you reach out to the hosting provider, you're pretty sure
it's them.
It's somewhere there. And you don't want to go through 5 different hoops and 7 different ticket systems to finally be able to reach someone who can give you information.
Yeah, because it's so complex, and that's the reason why I want to go to a third party for those, because it's I feel like I'm opening a Pandora's box, and my team won't have the knowledge for this, nor the time to take care of it. So it's good that I have people to look at all these other elements to help me. You
want your hosting provider to be that partner, and also a knowledge partner with you, to help you there and work as a team together with you. The worst situation you can be in if you are seen by your provider as just another client, as a number, and then if you have a problem, that they are not there for you.
Yeah, that's actually a bit scary, because so like I said, I worked with very big companies, but also small ones, and it's very it's frightening to think that might happen, that you just might be a tiny client that people would dedicate only so little time to, when it could be very important, or also the game could explode as well. So what do I do if I have a small game and then on release, bam, it just explodes?
Yeah, I mean, that's also why I always say that even a small studio and a small game for us is still a very important client, because the next day it could very well be that the game has exploded, and it's then the next big thing that everyone wants to play.
Yeah.
So for us, whether it's a big corporate publisher or a small indie studio, we all have the same passion for gaming and making sure that the player gets the best experience possible. And that means also working with all our different clients and also treating them as them all being very important. And because we've been in this business for 20 plus years, we are very much aware of the kind of problems that they face. And we understand the problems that they face. So that's why we are able to act on them.
Yeah. It's the other thing, it reminds me of a bit of something that's kind of I need to pay attention to when I'm working with very small clients is, of course, there's a lot of things we can't do because we have small teams. So we're going to be using a lot of different tools.
Yep.
So how do I make sure as well that my infrastructure and my hosting provider works with the different tools, because that's a lot of different technologies I need to plug in together, for instance, the anti-DDoS. Yep. How do I do that?
So it's very normal nowadays that, especially as a game designer or publisher or studio, that you integrate and operate with many different tools and many different kind of services or SaaS-based platforms. So one thing, of course, to look at what's the tool availability, what kind of resources does your hosting provider provide to you to be able to talk to them in an automated way, like, for example, API endpoints, and what's the amount of effort that I need to do to be able to integrate with these kind of systems, and what would be the effort be to not integrate with these systems. So one of the first questions that usually then comes to mind when I'm looking at other hosting providers or platforms, what's the ease of integration? Do they have SDKs available, general ones, or even based in the agents, like in Unreal or Unity? And how easy is it to integrate this in my game? How much development time do I need to spend to start using this platform? And of course, from a hosting provider's point of view, I want to make that time needed as small as possible. Yep. But from a game development point of view, you want to make sure that the integration that it offers, of course, doesn't take a lot of development time, but that you're also fully aware of what does it mean if I'm integrated here.
Yes.
Is it good? Well, can I integrate away from it if needed? What are the advantages that it offers me? For example, in our case, I would claim the advantages are, if you integrate with us, we have a very transparent bare metal layer of these services, and you can bring even your own cloud accounts if you have them.
Nice.
So you can use them to use for your bursting capacity. So yes, you have a bit of a lock-in with us, but there's full transparency along the process. That's not always the case with other SaaS platforms, and that's definitely something that you need to be aware of.